Dave Fennoy with you on another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. And I look at my watch that actually you can't see it there, but I don't have a watch on. 6 p.m. on the nose. Want to remind you, thank you for being here. It is my pleasure, and I hope yours. I want to remind you that all the Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy VoiceOver Training. I encourage you, if you'd like to take some voiceover coaching from me, to visit davefennoy.com. You can click on the Study VO tab and book yourself. And you can reach me by Twitter, X, whatever the hell they're calling it now, at Dave Fennoy VO. And I'm putting a little sign up there. I'm one of the NEVO board members, the National Association of Voice Actors, and we support the SAG after strike. We are in solidarity with actually workers in general getting paid what they are worth. So, um, before we visit with my guest, I've got a workshop coming up. Often I'm teaching for other people, but this one is for me, with me. Um, if you can go to davefennoy.com and you can sign up for voice acting for video games, my workshop that'll be happening Saturday and Sunday, October 21st and 22nd, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. We'll take an hour maybe for lunch. A lot of times I'll say, well, do you want an hour or one half an hour? No, half an hour. I want to get back into it. What are you going to learn? Well, how to create grounded, cinematic, believable performances that today's video game industry demands. You'll learn to see and play the scene, not just the words. You'll learn how to get more by doing less. And you will free yourself from the tyranny of words and punctuation. And of course, part of that is eliminating those ready reads. We will spend some time doing efforts. We'll learn how to tell a story. No words, just efforts, and of course, much, much more. Also, I record these, and if you are a full participant, you have access to the full recording. Now, they're going to be full participants, and then there'll be flies on the wall who get to see and hear it all. The workshop is $375. For flies on the wall, $100. But if you notice there on the screen, early bird 50, that is the code you can use between now and September 15th to save yourself $50 and take the workshop for $325 if my math is correct. So I hope to see some of you in this workshop. It's going to be great. We have a good time and you learn a lot. And I just want to mention, bragging a little bit, my agent, CESD, has me doing a few workshops for CESD clients because what I teach works. And we did one, and they've come back and, gee, can we get one almost like every month? Not going to do it every month, but you can get in on this one if you are not a CESD client. All right, let's visit our guest. I've got a great guest. Our paths have crossed quite a bit without our really sitting down and having a talk. But she is just amazing when you look at the things she has done over the years. We'll talk about all of that, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Lau, how are you?
Hey, Dave, I'm awesome. I'm so happy to be on the show. So honored to be with you.
Well, I'm honored to have you. One of the things I learn about my guests is much more than I ever knew when they send me their bios. And I've seen your name. I was aware of you. We have been at a lot of the same conventions and somehow maybe said hi or shook hands, but never really got to sit down and have a good conversation. And for some reason, Jim Frank is calling me now. I hope he'll have to call me later. But what was I saying? Oh, but we've never really had a chance to sit down and have a chat uh, to find out who you are. Not trying to be big headed, but people seem to know who I am for some reason. Uh, I think it's the hair, but
I wonder why.
I, looking at your resume, you've been in this biz for 40 plus years.
Hmm.
Um, you are the owner and president of Lau Lapides company. Um, you have studios in Boston. You are a talent agent as well as an artist. Your agency, MCVO. And you have a roster of talent from the United States and around the world. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get started?
Oh my goodness, Dave. What a question. How long is this show? Well, okay. It started at the beginning, as Yogi Bear would say, but I'll skip to the most interesting and pertinent parts. I'll say this: growing up, I was always a performer. I was always, actually, I was a dancer for many years before I was even an actor. I just was born to do that. I didn't really want to do anything else. I knew that I was going to be a performer, and I performed for many, many years. I went to college for it. I was in regional theater. I did repertory theater. I did stock. I did equity tours, like everything you can imagine. I was one of those really hungry people. And I suppose I'm still like that today. That was one of my traits. I was like my dad. I always had fire in the belly. And I always wanted to work. I always wanted to be busy. I like being busy. I like doing things that I love doing. I was one of those multitaskers. So I was performing, I was school all the time, I was working on a degree, and then I was doing side hustles. I was doing side jobs. But I'll skip to my graduate school because I think that was the most prolific time milestone for me. Right around when I was turning 30, that I decided to audition, and it took me 5 years. I love telling clients this story because everyone thinks, you're an overnight success, right, Dave? You're just an
Oh, yeah.
overnight success. And I always say, I am an overnight success. I'm a 40-year overnight success. Like, it takes a long time to be successful. So I auditioned for graduate school. It took me 5 years to get into the graduate school that accepted me and that was right for what I wanted to do. And I was offered a full ride, full TA-ship, full scholarship to UC Irvine in California. And it was awesome. And it changed my whole life, Dave. I was not only an MFA actor in residence there, but then I was offered a directorship, a TA to teach in the community. And I started directing and teaching undergrads while I was in grad school. That changed the whole trajectory, really, of my career. I knew at that point I was not only an actor, but I was a director and wanted to produce. I wanted to become a producer. And so I jumped into a whole decade post grad school of becoming a college professor, developing courses, developing curriculum. And ironically, here's the interesting thing, Dave. This was the real precursor to my career, was that strangely enough, they were asking me, these great programs were asking me to develop curriculum for business programs. And I was like, what? I'm coming out of an MFA academic program. They're asking me, they're like Harvard equivalent programs. And I said, here's the type of person I always was. I said, yes to everything. Yes, I will do it. And then I went and I figured out how to do it. And then I created all of this curriculum. I'd take classes to London to study the British stage. I created MFA fast track program in communications and presentation skills. I did everything that was under the umbrella of what I was taught as an actor. And there's a lot of connection to everything we do for talent in the biz, to the hardcore conservatory level actor skills. And so skip to 40 and I opened a studio. I said, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to have a business, and I'll open a studio. And so, of course, I opened a studio in one of the worst recessions in American history. And it was a great challenge for me, Dave. It was a great challenge to say, listen, it's either now or never. You're getting an opportunity. Say yes. What's the worst that happens? You fail.
You fail. Well, and you know what I've always said: if you haven't failed, you're never going to succeed. Because
Amen to that.
if you haven't failed, you haven't tried. I think people, especially in our business, and you can look at it as a working actor, you fail several times a day. You audition, you don't book the job. You fail, you fail, you fail, you fail. You might fail 10, 15, 20, 30 times and then book.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the nature of our business. And I really kind of think that is the nature of life.
Yes, it's like, when a talent comes and says, "Law, I'm really afraid. I'm scared of improv. I'm worried about having actor skills for voiceover and doing any kind of improv tool." And I say, "But wait a second. Think about it this way. Life is an improv. Everything we do from the moment we wake up till when we go to sleep at night is improv. Unless you're on an actual script, it's improv. And even when you're on a script, you have to improvise what your interpretation is until you find the interp, right? So
Absolutely.
you can't be afraid of the calculated risk taking that life is going to have for you. And the more you're able to take it on and grab hold of it and run with the ball, the more chance you have of that ROI, of having that return. And sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's emotional, but oftentimes it's psychological
Oh,
change.
so often, so often, so often. Something I find with students a lot. And by the way, for whatever reason, the mic I'm supposed to be using here isn't working. So this is the mic off of my computer in front of me. So if it sounds a little cheesy, it is. But
Speaking of improv,
one of the things I find with students is that fear that I'm not enough, that why would they like me? My voice doesn't sound like that person's voice who is booking all the time. And how do you get across to people that it's not about your voice?
well, one of the early principles that I learned, not just as a performer, but as a business coach, because I was actually an executive speech coach before I became an acting and voiceover coach. And what I was taught, Dave, from this mentor that I had who owned a company who hired me, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't mind being vulnerable and telling you the honest truth. I'm not trained in this. I don't work with executives, and I've never been in corporate America. What do I have that could possibly warrant $500 an hour for a coaching rate? And he said to me something I will never forget. He said, number one, stop talking. I need you to listen. Actively and acutely listen, and you're going to pick up the cues of what the client needs, what their problem is that you're going to solve for them, what their need is that you're going to fill for them. And I know that you've got enough brilliance to do that if you stop talking and you listen to what they have to say. And then from there, you're going to find that as you put together the tools and techniques for that client, you're going to find that what you do and how you do it becomes unique to that client. And then they want you. They're interested in you. They're not interested in perfection. They're not looking for the best, most talented person in the world. They're looking for someone that is connected, someone who is relatable, someone who is real and feels authentic in their perception, and someone who is trustworthy. Can they trust that you're going to execute and come through for them consistently? Not when you want to or when you're in the mood or when it's convenient for you, but on their terms. So I always like to say, it's not about being the best, it's not about being more than enough. It's about putting yourself aside. And we all have big egos. Us, creatives, our big divas, put ourselves aside for a moment and put that audience first.
You
And
know, that's interesting because that so is what we have to do when we're listening to someone's read and why, oh, this is working or this isn't working. But when you were working with executives, What were some of the kinds of things? And by the way, I loved what you had to say about the person told you to shut up and listen. Let them talk. They will tell you what's going on with them. And even sometimes when people are trying to hide what's going on, it just has a way of kind of seeping out through the seams. What were some of the kinds of things that you would help these high-powered executives with?
And it's so fascinating, Dave. It turned out to be later on in retrospect exactly the same things that I and my coaches would work on with actors and voice actors.
Mm.
Exactly the same, just a different audience, different stakes, different financials, but the same skill set. So like this is where I learned how to self-direct. This is where I've always been a director, but to self-direct is as VO talent knows is really a must. It's a necessity to be able to self-regulate and modify and modulate what you're doing without outside source coming at you. So I learned how to do that. Things like fear, anxiety, stress, strain was really oppressive to the speakers. And I worked with a lot of speakers, presenters, keynotes, folks that were leading meetings and doing global conferences. And one of the most common things was that they simply didn't want to do it. They didn't feel prepared. They were nervous about it. They were worried that they were, volunteered to do it. And how do they shift the mindset to meet that meeting and where it's at? So, in essence, they had to learn how to become an actor. They had to learn how to play a role, but yet be authentic and connected as who they are in their position. Exactly what we do with a script.
So let me ask you this. You think you were trying to help them show up as the people their people thought they were or should be? Because in so many ways, that's what we do as actors is, I am Dave Fennoy, I am this person, but playing this character, I need to show up as this person who is not like me at all. Or
That's
sometimes a whole lot like me. Uh, interesting. So Shakespeare was right. Life is but a stage and we are all actors. Dun dun dun
Yes,
dun.
as 'twere a mirror held up to nature,
Oh
right?
boy.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. We're getting wild. So, in corporate, they were looking for the same thing that we as performers are looking for, and that is how do I have a mirror psychological effect with my audience so that my audience can start to empathize with me as an actor, empathize with me as I with them, and then believe the trick. I don't
Hmm.
like to say the word lie because lie has such a negative connotation, but you're not who you say you are oftentimes when you're delivering a script. You're playing a role, you're being paid to play a role. But here's the thing, going back to your original question, Dave, about am I enough? Can I bring enough to this? Am I good enough? Am I great enough? And I compel the talent to say, listen, where you are in your life, you have a whole history behind you. You have a whole rich history. I don't care if you're 12 years old, you have a history behind you. Bring that with you, bring that to the table, because I'm going to guarantee that you have so many doors to Narnia's closet to open and get into those worlds. You're just not tapping into the reservoir yet.
Well, that is so true. One of the things I've told some students from time to time is when they're really having a hard time finding the feel of this character, I say, well, forget all that other stuff.
Hmm.
This is you in this situation. Let it be you. How you would think, how you would feel, how you would react. Don't worry about another voice, or it's deeper, or it's lower, or it's tougher, or it's kinder, or soft. Just, you have had feelings similar to this. Perhaps you've never killed anybody, but we felt, I'd like to kill that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, play that. Play the real you.
And I love that, Dave. And if you think about yourself in different situations. Really, acting is context. Acting is about situation, right? Like a situational comedy. It's how do I act and react in that particular situation? Some situations we haven't lived yet. We don't really know how we'd react. If we're, God forbid, in war, how would we react? Could we kill? Maybe. Right? So we always called it the magic if. That was Stanislavski's The Magic If. That is, what if I was in this situation? Then perhaps I could be a queen, or I could be someone who murders someone, or I could be a top level executive. It's possible. That is a magical if that children know how to do that instinctively, and we lose that ability as we get older.
There's something about getting older that often the magic of life is snatched out of us. I have just noticed so many people, let's say doing a class, a workshop, and we'll get to something like efforts. And you don't have to say anything. They're noises that give a feel of something. I'm being hit, I'm hitting, I'm crying, I'm laughing, I fell down and hurt myself. And people just sometimes have such a hard time. There's such a disconnect from who they are and what they're trying to play. And we really need to bring those two things close together. And of course, the magic is when you're able to help somebody do that. So, Lau, what are some of the techniques you use to help somebody become a better actor, connect with these words that are not their own? I often say our job as voice actors is to make somebody else's words our own. But that's just a little part of making this other character us.
Yeah. Oh, great question, Dave. The first one that comes to my mind that isn't quite so obvious as saying something like you must warm up and you must have a vocal space and you must focus your mind. We all know this is a truth. This is a truism. But I'm going to throw something a little, excuse me, unique at you that I use in our coaching that is very hard. It's a very challenging exercise. And that is what I call 10 facts. So as a talent takes a script, takes a piece of copy, I'll say, look at this person. I won't even call it a character because I feel like when I call it a character, when I call the person a character, they immediately objectify it as something larger than life or something different from them or something that they have to gyrate and get larger for. I said, well, that could be, but let's just internalize it for 1 minute. Give me 10 facts about this entity. It may not even be a person. It could be a dog. It could be an alien. It could be whatever. Just give me 10 facts. That is a very challenging exercise because what does the creative do? They immediately jump to the commentary. They go right into their opinions of it. They go right into the what I call the frosting on the cake, which is what we love to do. But I want the cake. What is the cake? What is the cake built out of? And 10 facts. And here's what I find. Psychologically, the talent does not want to go there because they don't want to make the decision that is finalized. And I said, but wait a second, it's not finalized. You can make that decision, make that bold choice, really commit to it, but then shift it out in a moment's notice. That's what you have to do, right? But if you don't make the choice.
Yeah. Give me an example of 10 facts somebody might come up with.
Sure. So and this could be on a commercial script, say like a car script or something like that. I'll say, okay, so who are you? We all use that, who you are. But if I come from a fact base, just the facts, right? I might say, are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you non-binary? Who are you? What are you? Are you an alien? Are you a bug? What are you? Give me the fact that I couldn't argue with. How old are you? Okay. How tall are you? Where do you live? What do you do for work? How many children do you have? Do you have children? Now, could we argue? Of course we could argue, but they're much more fact-based than saying, I have children, but They're the love of my life. I can't live without them. They're my dream children. That gets into commentary. That's the schmaltziness that the actor frosts with over time. But if they don't know the baseline of who they are, it's similar to like your marketing and branding strategy. If I don't really know who I play, the agent or the casting can get very, very confused because they don't want to think you play everything. They want to think you play that one or two things really, really well,
You,
like the
you
best.
you you have to come into the room and be that character that they're looking for, not too wide a variety of characters. What you were just saying about, yes, do you have children? How many children do you have? And that person says, I love my children. And I think we would all say, oh, I love my children.
Hmm.
Uh, but we also have more complicated relationships with our children and our husbands and wives and our friends and family. And I think sometimes we're just scratching the surface. Those are my kids. I love them and I take care of them. As opposed to what are you worried about with these kids? Uh, what are they doing that you wish they weren't doing?
Hmm.
What where are they lacking? Where are they shining? Um, if you have more than one kid, what's your fear about your kids' relationship with each other? I always find it's things like that that really uh, get to the heart of things that just carry you deeper into a character.
And those are such sophisticated, nuanced decisions that one can make rather fast, very quickly, once we've made the baseline decisions. But the tentative, non concrete language that I hear oftentimes is, well, I could be 38 or I could be, 45. I said, listen, I've been there. 38 is very different than 45. I thought very differently at 38 than 45. And they said, well, what does it matter, Lon? I said, it matters because if you're talking about, say, this car in this commercial script, it matters. This is part of my lifestyle. This has solved my problem with my 5 children, fitting them in the car. Everything, every decision you make matters. And so I oftentimes say, don't shove it under the rug like, oh, it could be many things, but people are making choices and they're much more specific choices than you think. Then we start to nuance that. Then we start to frost those choices. And then they become very interesting as we learn what the conflict is, what the plot line is, where those characters, what the arc of the story is. Then they become very, very addictive and very exciting. But if I don't know who I am at the baseline from the beginning, I haven't made the choices, then I can't play the true specificity and details that I need to play. And I always say to my students, I say, listen, I would love to be a 22-year-old Scandinavian supermodel, but that ain't happening. It just ain't. Right? I'm joking. I wouldn't want to be that. That's not me. I'm me. I'm the best of who I could be, right? But if I think, oh, it could be that, maybe I'm that, whatever, then I'm going off in a direction that is going to be a journey that's going to put me off track. So finding the realistic castable choices for you if you're working in the industry, and then finding the facts about who this being who is drawn as, then we can start to really nuance it and detail it and get really exciting with it. That is a nice layered cake.
Amazing. Now, well, let me ask you, actors uh, often, when somebody has just gotten an agent and they're, oh, I just got my agent. I'm so glad, and I don't want to bother them. Um, how do you help? How, as an agent, do you help actors learn how to communicate with you, learn how to share what direction it is that they want to go in, so that you're just not guessing? I think sometimes people will uh, either do way too much, want to call every day. So anything come in today? Well, and the others are, oh, I don't want to bother them. They signed me now, and I'll just wait on something to happen.
Well, so I found out myself, having been relatively new at and running an agency division, I'm like 4 years into that. That's been a huge learning curve for myself and my team as well, that everyone communicates a little bit differently. So I set very basic guidelines and parameters. I don't want to stress anyone out. I don't want to put a lot of responsibility on people. I feel like they have enough on their plates. I simply say, look, once you've signed this contract, this letter of understanding, you know what it is, you know what their criteria is. They're all pros. They get it. They know what it is. Just let us know. Are you booking out? Are you not available? Is something going on in your world? Otherwise, just pass on auditions if you need to pass. You don't have to give me, excuses or apologize. I find that a lot of voice talent get very upset when they're not coming through, or they're feeling like they're letting someone down. And I think once you've reached that level where you have representatives that adore you and believe in you, and you're kind of sold in that sense, just assume your fabulosity. Assume it. Just say, okay, I'm
I'm
great.
fabulous.
I'm with it. I'm in the agency. It's good. I'm not going to do everything. I'm not going to come through on everything, whatever. But that being said, do the due diligence. Like don't let things go for no reason. Don't, be careful of your timelines. Watch your timelines, hit your deadlines, give the best and most that you can. No one is looking for above and beyond. We just want a really great due diligence read, and we want it turned around in the time frame, and we want to deal with people that are relatively nice to deal with, because we'd like to think we're nice to deal with. We never treat anyone. I've always been very sensitive about this, Dave, as a coach, is that I never ever treat actors, whatever kind of actor they are, as below us or beneath us, or like we're just moving them around like chess pieces. I've seen that in representation, and I really abhor that. That's not our style at all. We're very down to earth, and if anything, we're very maternal. So we're kind of like the Jewish mothers of the of the industry, and so we want people to
Hey now. Every mother is a Jewish mother. I don't care who she is, what the background is. Every mother's a Jewish mother.
I've been waiting to tell people, why haven't you called us? Why?
That's funny. You know, I've gotten to the point finally, I've been there for a while, where I don't feel the need to audition for everything. And at the same time, I often find something that I'm not really that interested, but it is kind of in my wheelhouse here. I think I got to take on this. So often I'm not just looking at, hey, they sent this to me, but does this fit for me? Do I like it? Am I interested in it? We're in a different world now, where it used to be, as a black guy, I got stuff with either for black guys or general market, because I'm general market enough sounding that I could do it. But now we're in a world where we're seeing very specific casting demands. We want this kind of person from this place, who is this age, who it's a gay character we're casting. We want a gay character.
Mm-hmm.
So forth and so on. And I've heard a lot of actors say, well, it feels like it's taken away my opportunities. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, I understand both sides. I get it. I deeply and truthfully empathize, because I was an actor for many years. So I understand that feeling of wanting to play everything, wanting to be up for everything, and wanting to have that fair, opportunity. I think that it's important and it's necessary now to open the playing field and give many opportunities that just have not had it for years and years. And so, of course, there may be an imbalance in that, but I think that if we ride that through, it will over time balance itself out. I do like the native and indigenous flavor that a lot of the castings are having, because I've always yearned for that myself. Is like, I always say, well, where are all of my, where's my Latina talent? Where's my Asian talent? Where are they? You know what I mean? So it's sort of pulling people out and putting them in the front, which is a really great opportunity for people who have been in the background for a long, long time, and now saying, "Oh, there are jobs for you, and we have training to help you get to that place where we can, offer that to you." So I think over time it will balance itself out, but I think it's wonderful to see such diversity, such cultural awareness, and such, ethnic, explosion as we're seeing now. I think it's a long time coming, and it's here. And yeah, sometimes you have to step aside a little bit because someone else is going to, be up for that role. But you know what? You know what? I've been in the industry a long time. It was always like that, just in different ways. When I was an actress up and coming, if you weren't blonde haired and blue eyed, you would not be considered for anything. That was the all American look and feel 30 years ago, right? It's now completely flipped. It's now completely opposite. But at that time, like I wasn't up for many, many roles because I always had an ethnic look. I always had an ethnic feel. And there were not the roles at that time. So it's kind of refreshing to me to see so much abundance of that now.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. Great for everybody. I always say it's show business, and we have a lot of people from every walk of life in this business, and they all deserve an opportunity. And talent will rise to the top. I want to take some questions here or some comments. So, listen, if you have some questions for Lau Lapides, get in there, type them in. We're going to start looking at those now. My buddy Terry Briscoe, people often ask me why I still watch cartoons. The answer is because it keeps you plugged into that inner child, and you never forget how to play no matter how old you get. Not really a question, but a worthy comment. And by the way, while some questions are coming in, oh boy, yeah, we do have some questions here. I want to, before we get away from this, now, you were a presenter at this year's VO Atlanta, and for some insane reason, you decided to start your own convention.
What was I thinking, Dave?
Yeah, weren't you busy enough?
I know, right? I know. Well, this was actually not a new thought for me. I had been letting that marinate in my brain for a few years now. And I just didn't know what it was. I didn't, like we're all entrepreneurs and we have to let things simmer sometimes. And I said, what is this? And it just came out all of a sudden what it is. And for us, it's a summit that is a very interpersonal, engaging, immersive kind of style. And that's how the studio team works as coaches. That's how we work as actors and as human beings. And I just kind of want to fulfill that. I want to fulfill that more. So this summit is a first time launch, New England VoiceOver. And the goal is really to keep the crowd small and intimate and engaged with the guests who met. You're a guest, and we have incredible guests coming through, and the guests are very, very interactive. They're all coaches and facilitators. I don't want it to be like a sit and listen passively. My vision is really to have people on their feet, working, talking, moving, discussing, sharing, and really exhausted by the end of the day. And we also have our showcase on that weekend as well. That's our signature talent showcase where we invite in just the top agents, casting directors, producers, managers from across the globe, not even the nation now, New York, LA, but now they're coming in from UK and Australia and other countries as well. So I'm incredibly excited, over the moon about this.
That is one of the best reasons to go to a convention or summit, is to have that opportunity to show what you can do in front of people who can hire you. I know here in LA, a lot of the more popular classes are the ones with a casting director from Disney or someplace else, and you got 8 or 10 people there, you're reading copy, and you want to wow them, of course. Ostensibly, it says they're going to teach you, but what everybody's trying to do is wow them. And I'm just going to say, it's a great thing to do, but don't do it before you're ready. The last thing in the world you want to do is, leave a a bad impression on somebody that then they have to get over. Couple of comments here. Let's see. Mike Cunningham commenting on what you said. I personally identify as a young Scandinavian supermodel. So weird. And there's his picture there. And Terry Briscoe, of course, had an answer for that. I had you more pegged as an Italian supermodel. Well, okay, fine. Right. And our Italian or Scandinavian model, Mike Cunningham. Question, Lau. What are somewhat common normal things that established actors do that turn you off in regards to them? Why do they got to be established actors?
I guess it could be anyone, right? Right, Dave? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great question. I mean, just some quick things off the top of my head is I don't have a lot of this though, now that I think about it, but it would be someone who is incessantly emailing in with so many questions, or they're confused about everything, or they don't know the protocols, what have you. I always feel like, okay, take a meeting, have everything answered in the meeting rather than going back and forth on email, because agents, I'm telling you, they're busy and they're constantly on email and going really fast. And so you don't want to wreck that flow, because what they're doing is they're working hard on your behalf. I mean, we're working hard to get hooked up for you and get gigs for you. So that's one of the things. The other is I tend to have really sweet natured and nice people, which is wonderful. But many will write in and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do this because my child and I'm on vacation." And I said, "Listen, I appreciate it. I adore you. You don't have to write in and you don't have to tell me that. It's okay. I get it if you need to pass on something." I think that's another thing that's just time consuming. It can be very time consuming. One thing, Dave, I have to mention is, and this happened one time with one of our talents that was very, very disappointing, is they signed a contract that very clearly stated they needed a broadcast studio setup and Source Connect, and then got booked for a great job, and then was up all night with the producer because they did not have Source Connect. And so we had to get involved with that, and that was a very bad scene. And ultimately the client was very gracious and wanted this person and booked a studio for this person to go into, and there wasn't
It made
any way
you
they
look
could
bad.
know.
Made you
It
look a
did.
little bad.
Yeah.
Because this person said, and you know, that's almost the kind of thing. It's almost, you almost wish that they'd gone with somebody else just because the person would have learned the lesson. Listen, if I say I've got Source Connect or Connection Open or whatever, I need to have it. I can't tell that kind of lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and they're checking availability, and they want to do a test. And so there was all that time to really come forward and say, I just don't have it yet, or I don't. And the baseline of it, because I couldn't understand why they didn't have it. The baseline was they just didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to pay for the man. I said, well, wait a second. This is your investment in your
Did you pay for a
career.
microphone? Did you pay
I know.
for the things you needed to have a booth that sounds decent? Of course you did. It's part of doing business. Connection Open, Source Connect. You have to have it. All right. Got a question here. Michael Bagley. Love this discussion of choices. Oftentimes we talk about taking risks or making risky choices. What do you think would qualify as a risky choice for a given character or script? Interesting question. Wide open, because we don't know what character or script, but talk about risks and choices. I often think actors have the wrong idea about what choices are. They're trying. Oh, I want to do something that's going to stand out. I want to be something that's different. I want to wow them.
Okay, so it is difficult because we don't know what the parameters are of the particular read that you're doing. But in a general sense, I'll say, have a coaching team in place. Have a great coach that you're working with that you can check in with when you need to. You may not do it on every audition. It may not be necessary. But if you have a big audition, or you have something that it takes a little bit more time, or maybe it's a little bit more of a stretch for you, take the time to get a booth director, have your coach come in and just say, hey, can you listen to this? Or can I just send you an MP3 of a few of my choices? I'll pay you for your time. It's worth it. It's really, really worth it, because you don't want to step in the pitfalls and have a coach say, I don't know why you're making that choice. It's completely inappropriate. It's outside of the specs. There's nothing in the guidelines that supports this. It's just kind of you showing off. So I think pros get that, and they get that very fast. I think it's really early entry talent that want to kind of show off and walk the tight wire. And you really don't need to do that. I really think it's important that you stay within the guidelines, and your coach should be helping you with that. The casting, the agency, everyone else involved, it's really not their job to do that. They're assuming you're marketing, you're ready to be marketed. You're it's like a broker, moving a house. You're ready. I'm not flipping the house right now. The house is ready. You know what I mean? To go on the market. So you got to have the due diligence of your team in place to help you with that, and know who those people are that are going to help you. And typically they're great coaches that are going to help you with making those decisions, and not leaving anything to chance. And also, you've got to play back. That's another little pet peeve we have, is the newbies that don't play their audition back and just send it in, and then we hear all sorts of problems. We say, you didn't play it, you didn't listen to it, right? Because we can't submit it. We just can't.
I'm surprised sometimes the number of times I've done an audition, I loved it while I was doing it, and listened back and I mispronounced a word, or there was something wrong, or you're in your head sometimes and you're reading something and you've actually said the wrong word, mispronounced it completely, but you didn't realize it because so much stuff was going on in your head. I just want to say to actors, when you want to make really good choices, look deeper into that character and what's going on. What's in that character's inner dialogue? What's at stake for that character? Find those things that are very human, because everything we're doing, from commercials, narration, TV promos, animation, video games, are based on our humanness, or sometimes how far away from our humanness we are. But what is this human thinking, feeling, doing? How are they reacting to the stimuli? And when you up your game there, you're going to make some choices you wouldn't have made, but they'll make sense. All right, let's get another question. You were very quiet after that. I just knew you were going to say something.
I thought you were going to say something.
Richard Lohoff Jr. Hi, Lau. The 10 facts exercise, to be clear, is it a form of script analysis or more for coaching and development?
It's both. It's both. It definitely is going to help you with subtext. So as you go into your analysis, and I really highly recommend you do, even on the quickest, pithiest pieces, I would do a quick subtext, because you'll train your brain to be able to do that really fast and go right underneath the line. So if you go right underneath the line and you make some decisions about not the verbatim line that's written, but what you think is happening, that's your interpretation of the line. But pay attention. This is where Dave and I, with the Shakespeare, I'm telling you, you've got to have a little bit of classical training in your background, because we're trained. It's not about you. It's about the language and the playwright or the screenwriter, and you are the messenger. That's what you are. You're the messenger. So I don't want to go over those words. I don't want to miss any of that language. Yeah. It's very important to understand where that, writer, if you will, writer is coming from before I subtext.
We have some styles of acting. Sometimes we're doing something that's maybe more medieval, Shakespearean, and it's a little elevated and a little pushed and a little bigger. And sometimes we're just playing a character that's right here, that's just almost mumbling. But it's the character has to live within the world that's been created for it. So always start with that big picture, and okay, this is the big picture of what this is. Now, who is this character that I'm playing? What is as much of their history? as you can get, what pushes their buttons, and then what's happening in every scene. I always say, look, I don't care that much about the words. I care because they only give detail of what the character's thinking and feeling, but what's going on in this scene. Throw the words away. Yeah, they got to be said. But what's he think? What's he reacting to? What's he thinking? What's he feeling? What is the movement? Because our body's in form of, and sometimes we're just on microphone and we feel like if I'm just standing here on microphone and I'm doing this and then it's all going to come out okay. And no.
No, and environment is important. That's another thing. Like any of us who had very rich and long theater backgrounds know that you're in an artificial environment. You're on a stage with props and cardboard and in a box that people spend money to get tickets for. But your convention, you have a convention that your imagination allows you to set that, again, retrains your brain that every script you have. Where am I? What's the environment? What are the details? I'm observing the landscape of the visuals, not just the soundscape of sound and delivery, but also how am I being affected? And certainly on camera commercials, on camera everything is about visual, right? So how am I being affected by the visuals that I'm seeing, I'm feeling from a sensory perspective, really utilizing the senses?
But we have to pull that into our voiceover as well, because I think one of the things that happens to us is we're in our booth, we got the microphone, we got the words. Let me make the words sound pretty, as opposed to just what you said. Where am I? Who am I talking to? What's that relationship? How far away? Are they right next to me? Are they across the room? What am I wearing? Is it cold? Am I outside? The more detail that you can bring to that, the more you will take the words off the page and bring believability.
Right, because the authenticity, the buzzwords that we have in our industry, the real, casual, conversational, relatable, is really just reactionary words. Like, how are you authentically paying attention to your environment and then reacting to it? We always, anyone who does feature film knows, like, they get paid for reaction. The scripts oftentimes are very light in feature films. It's really the reaction time that they're giving us visually. Well, same for us in vocal delivery. It's like, what are we reacting to? How are we feeling about everything, not just the people that are around us, but the environment whether it's the weather or a virus or animals, whatever. We're always reacting. So keying back into the natural reactions that we do is really finding that vocal actor in you authentically.
Absolutely. Let's see. Miss Great Newton has a question. What sets NEVO apart from other VO conferences?
It's a great question. I mean, I'd like to think, it hasn't happened yet. It's coming up. But prescriptively, here's the plan. The plan is that it's intimate. We're keeping it small, so there's a lot of personal time, whether the coaches and facilitators will work one-on-one or in tiny groups or whatever. That's really unique unto itself. And also the fact that people are going to be able to network much easier, I think, with each other in the groups and also with their coaches and facilitators as well. I think that that's a huge, huge thing for them. And then, of course, we're going to have our signature entertainment there as well, because we all have theater backgrounds. So, we'll have our Dragalicious open mic where everyone's going to get to perform. We're going to have our Boston stand-up comedians. We're going to have a VO murder lunch. I mean, come on now.
Get in the car, go to the bar, Star Market, Boston.
We're parking the car.
Parking the car. Oh boy, I have another question here. This from Assad Shams. And let me get that question for both. Do you ever get imposter syndrome about your performances? If so, how do you get over it? I recently did an audition and got too much in my head with thoughts like, I sound too monotone, etc., etc.
I love that question, Dave. I live for that question because so many of us for so many years have fought the imposter syndrome. And I think people are lying if they just say they haven't. Everyone has. I mean, it used to be known, I think, as a female, a woman's syndrome. And now we're finding out everyone has been experiencing this. And it's a very real phenomenon. And one of the things I would suggest strongly uh, besides having defaults in your head, scripting defaults in your head, when you hear that voice coming in, what you can say back to that voice as if it's another person speaking. I really believe strongly that once you start hearing it, you've already disconnected from your audience. So the discipline here is to connect to who you're speaking to, who the audience is, who you're speaking to, and use observational exercises to find out about them. Find out about them. The moment I start thinking about how do I look, how do I sound, how am I coming across, is the moment I've disconnected with my audience. So I would practice that. I would take a friend or your husband or wife or and just spend 5 or 10 minutes or an hour and not talk about yourself and not think about yourself, but authentically relate to that person, ask them questions, observe their clothing. Anyone who's studied Meisner techniques knows it's not about you, it's about the other and the observation of detail and repetition in the other that brings us the interesting reaction. The moment I say, I'm not good enough, I don't know what I'm doing, I've cut off the audience. I've cut them off. They're no longer important to me.
Yeah.
So make them important. Make them omni important. Their issues, their problem, their conflict. Try really hard to solve it. That's going to help you.
I would say I think we all from time to time do get a little imposter syndrome. Um, but for me, the thing is, yeah, you want to banish that little voice that's listening and judging. And what I tell my students is, listen, I want you to banish that character and replace it with the inner dialogue of the character you're playing. You know, we say ABC, but we're thinking XYZ. There's always a different dialogue going on than just the one that's coming out of our mouths. We can think so much faster than we can say things. We react, acting is reacting, and some people think, okay, well, that person said this, and now I'm reacting to it. Well, you said the next sentence, and they reacted to that too. Maybe they didn't say anything, but there was a look on their face. Pay attention to that. That's what you've got to pay attention to, is your inner dialogue, or the character's inner dialogue, I mean, and the reactions. Even if you're on the microphone with words on a page in front of you and nobody else is there, create it. Create what that other character is thinking, doing, gesturing, and your character's gesturing. Do they, I have an idea, I call it fresh thought, that, your character never actually has a script. You do, but your character doesn't have a script. Your character doesn't know all the things that they're going to say before they say them.
No, and may I add too, sometimes people have reported, and I myself it helps tremendously to physically get into an action immediately because you're stuck in your head. The analyzation process in your brain is like backfiring, like you're smoking, your brain is smoking, you're sizzling. Get out of that head, go into the body. Kinesthetically, it's really important to connect your head with the rest of your body because your brain is in your entire body, whether that's taking a walk or a bike ride or doing some yoga or whatever that is. Get physical because that's going to help alleviate a lot of that obsessive thoughts that you're having.
We're going to pick up a little conversation that was happening behind our backs in the comments. Terry Briscoe said, Assad, I know a lot of people who have imposter syndrome. Let me ask you if you ever just sight read first so you have your first instinct and can play off of it. I'm just going to say, I'm not a great believer in sight reading. I'm much more a believer in let me read this thing and understand what's being said, and then let me read it again and see if there's something else that I missed, and then let me read it again before I do anything with it. I want to understand what it is. If it's a character, I want to be able to answer those questions for myself about who this character is, how do they show up in the world, and what are the thoughts and feelings and reactions that go with that. But I want the words to be facile. I don't want to be sight reading. It takes a certain amount of brain power to actually recognize the words and say them. The more you can semi-memorize. And if you got one line, you know, hey, they went that away. You don't have to read it. You know, you read it one time, you've got it. And learn to really pay attention to what you're reading there, to the words that have to be said, as opposed to, I'm thinking of that, and oh gee, I got to do this other thing over there, and oh boy, what time is it? All those things that pull us out of really concentrating on what we're doing. And we're a minute over time. I like to get my guests out of here right on time, but I have to take one more from my East Coast buddy, Jim Frank. I think you know him.
I do.
And this has to be about the Northeast VoiceOver Conference, because he says, it's going to be wicked awesome, kid.
It's going to be freaking good.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. Get in the bar, go to Star Market, all of that good stuff. Hey, listen,
Sam Adams.
Lau, we could sit and talk about acting and acting technique and all of that for hours. Love so much of what you had to say, and so much wisdom in what you had to say. I hope people get it. And I'm looking forward to being there, even though it's going to be online, and meeting the folks who are going to be there for your first, oh, nope, not, I was going to say conference. You're calling it a
summit.
A summit. Bravo, bravo, bravo. All right, everybody. Thank you to Lau Lapides, and Lau will be in touch.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great night.
You too. All right, well, that does it for Lau Lapides. Just amazing, amazing, amazing. I love it with guests like that have so much to offer. But before I go, take care of a little business here. My workshop, Voice Acting for Video Games, Saturday and Sunday, October 21st and 22nd, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you could, you know what I do, you know what I teach. You can go to davefennoy.com, the Study VO tab, then hit Workshops, and it will pop up. And if you'd like to save yourself some money, it's $375, but you'll save yourself $50 if you just punch in that early bird 50, and it'll be $50 off, so $325. And that is until September 15th. So thanks for being here. You have no idea how much I enjoy you guys. And I live for Wednesday nights with you. This, as well as all the other Ask Dave Fennoy's Anything, will be on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy VoiceOver Training. Once again, coaching or to take the workshop, davefennoy.com. You can X me or Twitter me. I guess it's really going to be X, huh? Dave Fennoy VO. And until the next time, you know what I'm going to say. Book something.